What's the lie? That's the explosive question Senator Cory Booker threw straight at the Department of Justice after months of contradictions about the Jeffrey Epstein files. First, Attorney General Pam Bondi told the country she had seen what she called truckloads of incriminating evidence, words that immediately suggested there was more than enough to expose criminal activity tied to Epstein's network. But just weeks later, the very same DOJ, along with the FBI, insisted there was nothing more to disclose, no extra documents, no hidden files. Which story is true? Either Bondi misled the American people with an exaggerated promise of revelations, or the Justice Department is deliberately concealing evidence that could implicate some of the most powerful names in the nation.
98, say aye.
Mr. Grassley? Mr. Grassley?
Where?
I'm sorry, I was trying to be recognized.
Go ahead.
Yes. First of all, I want to express at the top a lot of frustration that the DOJ is scraping money back from some states. I've made this point multiple times, but it is very frustrating to me that my state is being denied these type of grants while other states are. We're seeing a big frustration across New Jersey that very thoughtful grants that could be saving lives and being substantively helpful are being denied. And with that frustration, I want to call up an amendment. I'd like to call up my amendment number ALL 25698. Mr. Chairman, this amendment would allow S1098 to take effect on the date when the Attorney General makes public all unclassified files, flight logs, correspondence, and evidence related to Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and their associates. The Department of Justice, we know, clearly has lied to the American people one way or another. Attorney General Bondi said that there were truckloads of evidence from the Epstein files and the Epstein list, leading people to believe that there was criminal activity that they had evidence of. I know Bove, who we're talking about, was part of this. We found out yesterday that the president is mentioned several times in the Epstein files, and he was briefed on it back in May when he said he was not told that. Then in July, suddenly the DOJ and the FBI said there was nothing additional to disclose. So what's the lie? That there are truckloads of evidence and this DOJ is protecting those associates with this horrific crime? That Mr. Bove, a Third Circuit nominee, is part of that cover-up? Or is the lie that there is nothing there at all? Let's just find out. This is simply asking for disclosure and transparency, and I'd like to offer that amendment.
Mr. Chair, parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Chair, down here.
And right at the center of this storm stands Emil Bove, a nominee for a lifetime seat on the Third Circuit Court of Appeals, whose record and suspected role in this scandal have set off alarms across party lines. Booker wasn't just grandstanding. He made his frustration clear, starting with the way the DOJ has handled money and grants, pulling funding away from some states while others benefited. In his home state of New Jersey, life-saving programs were denied, fueling his outrage. But instead of stopping there, he used that anger to pivot into something even larger. Booker introduced Amendment 25698, a bold move designed to force the Department of Justice to come clean once and for all. His amendment would make legislation effective only on the day the Attorney General publicly releases every unclassified file, every flight log, every letter, and every shred of evidence tied to Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, and their associates. For him, this was about one principle: transparency. If the government has nothing to hide, why not release everything? That question became even more dangerous when Booker revealed that former President Donald Trump's name appears multiple times in those very files. According to Booker, Trump had been briefed about this as early as May, despite publicly claiming he had not been told anything. That contradiction wasn't small. It took the scandal from a fight over DOJ secrecy into what could be described as a full-blown presidential crisis. If Trump knew his name was in the files but denied it, the cover-up narrative grows even stronger. Was this really just about protecting the reputations of a few people, or was it about shielding the former president himself? As if that weren't enough, Booker aimed his criticism directly at Emil Bove, the judicial nominee. In the middle of this unfolding controversy, here was a man being considered for one of the most powerful legal positions in the country, Booker questioned not only Bove's ethics but also his role in the Epstein file saga, suggesting that his nomination was intertwined with a broader attempt to bury the truth. For once, this wasn't simply a partisan standoff. To Booker's surprise, some Republicans began echoing his concerns. In a rare moment of bipartisan unease, senators on both sides started to question why this nomination was being rushed forward before critical questions were answered. It's not every day you see members of opposing parties stand together in today's climate, but the facts, as Booker put it, were too glaring to ignore, and those facts were damning. According to a whistleblower, Emil Bove had instructed DOJ attorneys to flat-out ignore a court order if it got in the way of Trump's agenda. The whistleblower said Bove even went so far as to tell the courts "F you." That kind of language, paired with outright defiance of judicial orders, painted a disturbing picture of a man who would soon be trusted with lifetime authority as a federal judge. Booker and others pushed to hear the whistleblower's testimony, but Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee blocked it, refusing to even allow this career prosecutor, a public servant with 15 years of experience, to testify under oath. Instead, the vote on Bove's nomination was forced through at breakneck speed, skipping the normal process of oversight and deliberation. That wasn't the only black mark on Bove's record. Back in 2018, former Southern District of New York prosecutors did something almost unheard of. They warned their own supervisors about Bove's reckless behavior. They called him the drunk driver of prosecutors, a scathing description that summed up his carelessness and disregard for rules. Then came 2020, when Bove was responsible for what judges called the largest Brady violation in the history of the Southern District. He withheld exculpatory evidence, critical information that could have cleared the defendant, even after a guilty verdict had been handed down. The misconduct was so blatant that the judge used Bove's actions as a textbook example of how prosecutors should never behave. The case was thrown out, and Bove's reputation as reckless and unethical only deepened. So why, Booker pressed, was the Senate rushing to confirm this man now, especially when his suspected role in handling the Epstein files raised even more red flags? At the time the DOJ reversed course and claimed there was nothing more to disclose, Bove was a top official, and as Booker reminded his colleagues, reportedly also acting as Trump's personal lawyer. That overlap was suspicious. Why would the DOJ suddenly shift from Bondi's claim of truckloads of evidence to a flat denial, unless someone with power and influence had intervened? Booker suggested that Bove may have been that person, pulling strings to suppress information that could have damaged Trump. If true, that meant a judicial nominee wasn't just guilty of misconduct in past prosecutions, but potentially involved in a coordinated cover-up tied to one of the most explosive scandals in modern politics. What makes Booker's argument especially powerful is how he frames the issue. It isn't only about Bove, it's about secrecy versus transparency, accountability versus corruption. It's about whether the justice system can be trusted to uphold its duty to the American people, or whether it will continue to protect the wealthy and the well-connected while denying the truth. Booker described a justice system derelict in its responsibility, shielding files and burying evidence instead of exposing wrongdoing. And in this framing, the Epstein scandal becomes not just a story of one man's crimes, but of an entire power structure desperate to hide its own complicity. As the hours ticked down toward a vote on Bove's nomination, Booker made it clear this was about more than partisan politics. He pointed to the unusual moment of Republicans breaking with their party to join Democrats in questioning Bove's fitness. He reminded his colleagues that judges, career prosecutors, and public defenders from both sides had already condemned Bove's behavior. It wasn't only Democrats calling him unfit, it was the broader legal community, and that, Booker argued, should tell the Senate everything it needed to know. Yet, despite all this, the nomination was still being rushed. Whistleblowers ignored, requests for records unanswered questions piling up about the Epstein files, Trump's role, and Bove's influence. The pattern looked all too familiar, power moving quickly to bury inconvenient truths before the public could see them. Booker's outrage was fueled by the fact that the Senate, an institution meant to advise and consent with deliberation, was acting more like an accomplice in the cover-up than a safeguard against it. At the end of his remarks, Booker connected all the threads: Emil Bove's reckless prosecutorial history, his alleged misconduct in defying courts, his suspected role in suppressing Epstein files, and his ties to Trump. Taken together, it wasn't just about one nominee, It was about a larger system of secrecy and loyalty protecting itself from exposure. A system that would rather elevate someone with a track record of violations than risk the truth coming out about who was connected to Epstein's web. Booker's closing message was sharp. If senators confirmed Bove without answers, they weren't just endorsing one man, they were endorsing corruption itself. And that brings the question back to us. What's the lie? Was Pam Bondi lying when she spoke of truckloads of evidence? Or is the DOJ lying now by insisting there's nothing more to disclose? Was Trump's denial about the Epstein files honest, or was it just another cover story? And was Emil Bove a bystander, or a central player in the effort to keep the truth buried? These are not small questions, and they demand accountability. So what do you think? Is this just political theater, designed to fire up headlines and stir partisan battles? Or is Senator Booker pulling back the curtain on a cover-up that goes deeper than most of us imagine, one that links the DOJ, Trump, and a federal nominee to a desperate attempt to hide the truth about Epstein's powerful network? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this is a conversation every American should be part of. And if you're tired of power games played in the shadows, hit like, share this video, and subscribe for more explosive breakdowns that cut through the noise and expose what others would rather keep hidden.